To celebrate 75 years of Formula One, LEGO released 10 different cars for each of the current teams on the grid. And whilst the cars themselves look absolutely fantastic, the minifigures aren't exactly replicas of the real thing. So today, I'm gonna make my own versions of every single driver on the 2025 grid and more. So it's lights out and away we go. Kicking things off, no pun intended, is Kick Sauber, whose lineup this year consists of the rookie Gabriele Bortoleto and Nico Hülkenberg. Currently, they're sitting at 7th in the Constructors, up from last place in 2024, and even celebrated a podium win at Silverstone, where Nico Hülkenberg got his first ever podium, complete with a LEGO trophy. For Nico, I thought the face from the Loki minifigure would be a perfect fit outside of it having thick black eyebrows. For his hair, there was no better option than the Superman quiff piece, which I originally tried in light nougat, however I wasn't completely sold as it felt a little too dark for his actual hair color. Thankfully, the hairpieces come in tan on a handful of minifigures, including Brian O'Connor. And now the Hulk is complete. For Gabby, I wanted to try and find a nougat colored head so that the minifigure could more closely represent him. However, there aren't a ton of prints in this color. I tested this head from a Doctor Wu minifigure from Jurassic World, but it just looked a little too old for my liking. So instead, I grabbed the head off the young Boba Fett to try out, and while it's still not perfect, I think it is a much better fit. When it came to a hairpiece, I ended up using this short Harry Potter one, and that is the first of the rookies done. One of the most surprising teams on the grid this season is by far Williams. From constantly having to repair their cars in 2024, they've managed to make their way to 5th place in the Constructors leaderboard as of August, topping the midfield teams by quite a wide margin. With a much better build of car and 2 fantastic drivers behind the wheel, I really think we could see a Williams podium in the 2025 season. So starting off, we have the heart of the Williams team, Alex Albon. Alex is one of the most entertaining drivers on the grid, and I found the perfect pieces for him. The headpiece that I went with is this miscellaneous one that came in both the table football set as well as this Pharrell Williams one that both had a variety of faces. And when you combine it with the young Harry Potter hair, it perfectly captures Alex Albon and his fun personality. The newest member of the team is the smooth operator himself, Carlos Sainz. For him, I went with a piece that most people have but never really actually get to see, and that is none other than the Clone Trooper head. But to get his hair right, I found a lot more difficult because Carlos is known for his hair, and finding the right hairpiece was not an easy task. After trying a handful of pieces, I eventually landed on the Superman head just like Nico, since it captures the volume and curl of his hair. Whilst Visa Cash App RB may be one of the worst team names of all time, they are by far the most entertaining off track. Liam Lawson, Isaac Hajar, and the V-Cub social team are an unstoppable trio and have really turned me into a casual fan this season.
Alan! Ow!
For Liam Lawson, I stole the head off Gilderoy Lockhart from the Harry Potter theme and combined it with this hairpiece that originally came from LEGO Friends. The face is a little too cheesy and big for him, though I really wanted the eyebrows to match his blonde hair. And for our next rookie, Isaac, I ended up going for an older head that hasn't been made in over 10 years. Luckily, it was featured on 21 different minifigures during its time, so it's pretty easy to grab a hold of, and was most notably used on Bruce Wayne. The main benefit to the head and why I ended up choosing it is that it doesn't have a second facial expression, which allowed me to use this super short, almost buzz cut looking piece for Isaac. The next team we're going to focus on is the All-American Haas team. They've been pretty solid over the last few years, and in 2025 completely switched up their lineup and have done really solid all year round. But before they changed drivers, Kevin Magnussen was behind the wheel, causing chaos and even getting a 1 race ban. For him, I thought the face from the Brian O'Connor minifigure that we used earlier was a perfect match, and then combined it with the short tan version of the Harry Potter hair. Our new lineup for Haas, however, consists of Esteban Ocon and rookie Ollie Behrman. For Esteban, I wanted to capture his beard and found that the best piece in order to do this is the original Star-Lord head. Now, when I made him originally, I gave him this black hair piece, but I feel like once again the Superman hair matches best for him because apparently every driver on this grid has a similar haircut. When it comes to making Ollie, I wanted to use a face that looked quite young since he is fresh on the grid this season. I found this head in my collection that was originally used for Chandler from Friends and then paired it with the same hairpiece from that same minifigure. I love how well these pieces match Ollie in real life, even though it is technically supposed to represent Matthew Perry. Alpine have managed to go from a steady midfield team to the bottom of the Constructors leaderboard in 2025. It's been a little bit of a rocky year for them, to say the least, from axing rookie Jack Doohan to his replacement Franco not performing, a scandal with the team principal, and then bringing back one of the worst people in the sport. At this point, Pierre Gasly is going to need a chiropractor from carrying the team on his back. Now, his minifigure was quite hard to nail, as I felt like I couldn't really find a headpiece that captured his face and beard. So I ended up going for this generic angry looking face from Oliver Wood and a couple of of the Star Wars troopers. And then for the hair, I went with the dark tan version of the same piece that we used for Ollie. For Jack Doohan, I used the same hairpiece again, but this time in reddish brown, and then topped him off with this simple smiling face that I stole from an Victor Crumb minifigure. And lastly, for Franco Colapinto, I went with this face as the thick eyebrows reminded me quite a lot of him and paired it with this dark brown curled hair. One of the most forgotten teams on the grid in my eyes is none other than Aston Martin. Now you might not think it, but Aston Martin are yet another team to take on a rookie in 2025 with the driver Fernando Alonso. He's by far the oldest rookie on the grid, which is why I thought I'd use the head of Sirius Black to represent him alongside the dark brown Superman hair so that I could capture Fernando's iconic quiff. His teammate is the only Canadian on the grid and the son of the team principal, Lance Stroll. Making him as a minifigure was pretty straightforward as I just grabbed the head from an old Draco Malfoy minifigure and then added some black spiky hair to complete him. Up next is none other than Mercedes, one of the most decorated teams in recent years. During their dominance, Valtteri Bottas was their number 2 driver next to none other than Lewis Hamilton. Despite not having a seat anymore, Bottas remains on the team as a reserve driver and the social team's go-to for content. For Valtteri, there was no hairpiece that suited him better than the long blonde mullet looking thing. Ideally, I would have loved to have used this Obi-Wan hair, however it only came in orange, which is why I ended up going with the piece that was used on Luke Skywalker. For the face, I thought there was no better option than Chris Pratt's head since it has the exact same prominent mustache that Bottas has. But unlike the current drivers, I ended up using the older Mercedes torso and legs from the W12 model that LEGO released a couple of years ago, which is the exact same race suit that he wore during the 2021 season. For George Russell, on the other hand, I'm using the body from the most recent line of sets. His face is one of the most commonly used LEGO heads of recent years, being used for characters such as Peter Parker, Ant-Man, Johnny Storm, and the Prince from Snow White. Then in order to replicate George's Prince Charming style hair, I grabbed this curly middle part hairpiece that was originally used on the BTS figures, and altogether I think he looks perfect. My favorite rookie and the face of the future of Mercedes is none other than Kimi Antonelli. He has had a fantastic year so far, getting pole in the Miami Sprint and then getting his first podium in Canada just a few races later. He's the youngest driver on the grid currently, so for his face, I wanted something that reflected that. I ended up going with Robin's head from the LEGO Batman movie, and I feel like his big smile is perfect. For his hair though, I started with this long scruffy hairpiece that was used on young Boba Fett, but on second thought, I think it actually needs more curls and would be much better in dark brown. So instead, I grabbed this curly hair that was used on Jay from Ninjago, and after adding it to the figure, I am convinced that this is a much better choice. No team crushes drivers' dreams quite like that of Red Bull. Despite having one of the most talented drivers ever, they have struggled to find a second driver who can manage the car in anywhere near the same way as that of Max Verstappen. And before Christian Horner was booted from his role as team principal, they had cycled through Albon, Gasly, Lawson, Ricciardo, and Sergio Perez. Perez lasted the longest as Max's teammate and will return to Formula 1 in 2026, racing under the brand new Cadillac team alongside Valtteri Bottas. For his minifigure, I grabbed the head of Wong from Doctor Strange, which has the perfect facial hair for him, and then combined it with this slick comb-over piece in black. When it comes to Yuki Tsunoda, who is the most recent driver to make the second seat, I ended up going with another random head from that same table football set. Then I paired it with the same BTS hair that I ended up using for Russell, but this time in black. As a little bonus, I also switched out the legs with these shorter mid-legs since Yuki is only 5'2". It is such a small change, but works so perfectly for him. Then finally, we have Red Bull's golden boy, the legendary Love him or hate him, Verstappen is a fantastic driver, but if anything is not going his way, he lashes out. For Max, I thought the best face was that of Draco Malfoy thanks to the blonde eyebrows and stern-looking face. And when paired with the dark tan version of Perez's hair, I think it perfectly represents the Dutch champion. There is no team that screams Formula 1 quite like that of Ferrari, but there is also no team that will drive its fans and drivers insane like them either. And the two drivers Ferrari decided to terrorize this year are none other than Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. Believe it or not, turns out you can actually be depressed driving a Ferrari. Now, Charles Leclerc was one of the hardest drivers for me to make since his facial hair, whilst not super long, is a pretty prominent part of his look. But very few LEGO faces have it in a way that would match the look of him. So I ended up having to sacrifice the facial hair and went with this face that was used for Cedric Diggory and Han Solo, and paired it with a slightly scruffy short reddish brown hairpiece. Out of all of the drivers I've made, I'd certainly say that this one looks the least accurate, but it still looks close enough like him that I feel like you can still tell. Lewis Hamilton, on the other hand, was the easiest for me to design. I picked out another head from the foosball table set, which has the the exact perfect looking facial hair and skin tone for him. Then I used the same hairpiece that I ditched from Esteban Ocon, and altogether I feel like he looks absolutely perfect. The only thing that is not accurate is the fact that he looks happier here as a minifigure than he does in the actual car. And last but certainly not least are the Constructors' Champions of 2024, and by far my favorite F1 team, McLaren. McLaren have by far one of the strongest lineups of the grid, which is carried by the current World Championship leader, Oscar Piastri. Whilst the team themselves may not believe that they have a #1 driver, Oscar has shown time and time again that he is hungry and ready for the championship win. He's also my favorite driver, so I really wanted to do him justice with this minifigure. And to do so, I picked out the latest head that was used for Cedric Diggory, which I think has the perfect Oscar smolder. For the hair, there was no better option than the reddish-brown tousled hair, which perfectly matches his curl and cowslick. I am so happy with how he turned out, and I don't think he could be any more perfect. For his teammate Lando, I used another variant of a Cedric Diggory head and then paired it with this short and super curly hairpiece to match his signature hairstyle. Ideally, the skin tone would be slightly darker, though with the limited face prints available in that color, I thought I had better go with this one just so he looks a little bit more like himself. But there is one more driver who I felt deserved a minifigure, which is none other than the beloved Daniel Ricciardo. Like Valtteri Bottas, there's an older version of his authentic race suit from his time at McLaren. And I know he's better known for his Red Bull days, but I really wanted to take advantage of having an accurate race suit for him. For his head, I reached for one used for Poe Dameron and paired it with the same hairpiece that I used for Lewis Hamilton. This combo captures Daniel's facial hair and signature look really well. I just wish it had a bigger smile to match him even better. And just like that, all the drivers are complete and ready to race. I understand why the actual drivers weren't included in the sets, but I'm so glad that I went and upgraded each team, as it really completes the set in my eyes. If you want to display your sets like I did, you can check out the wall mounts on HollyOnFilm.com, and if you want to see me make an F1 race, check out this video on the end screen now.